Hey there, and welcome to Reformed Acres. My name is Carissa, and today we are going to be canning up some tomato sauce using some tomatoes from the fall garden. So I'm filling up my roaster with just a couple cups of water and then starting that heating. And then I'm going to grab the tomatoes out of the freezer. Now, these are tomatoes that I picked off the vine when they were just starting to blush. I let them ripen on the counter and then I stuck them straight in the freezer. I cut off any bad spots, but honestly, these are whole tomatoes with skin on. The cores are in most of them, and that is exactly how we are going to put them in the roaster. I'm a busy mom of three, and I don't have time to be doing that right after harvest. So I love this clip. My little guy, he's not supposed to go back in the gym and the pantry. You see him give me a look back, and then he disappears, of course. So this water in the roaster probably could have stood to heat up for a little bit longer because I did end up with a couple of ice chunks as we went along. But I'm just taking these bags and I'm fitting as many as I can in the roaster. And I had about 8-gallon bags of tomatoes, and you'll see that not all of them fit, and we'll just add them later as the tomatoes start to cook down and lower in there. But we're just going to fill it as much as we can so that these can start thawing and getting really cooked up. As you can see, here are the bags that we had left over and we'll add later. I stuck a lid on this and I think I had it at about 250 degrees. I showed that a little bit earlier in the video. And as you can see, the first couple times that I went to stir this, it was really difficult. Everything is kind of frozen, nothing's cooked down yet, but I did stir this a couple times. Now, just to give you some context, I started this project probably around 8 or 9 in the morning, and I wasn't done canning this until about 7 or 8 at night. So it's definitely a long process, but so much less messy than if I were doing this on the stovetop because I've done that before and it's very, very messy. And you can see that these are really starting to cook down. They're releasing a lot of liquid, which is what we want. We want them to get cooking so that we can start getting them blended up. I did have a couple of tomatoes left on my counter that were ripe, so I figured this was a good time to just go ahead and add those in. This is an Amish paste tomato, and they kind of crack at the top, so you can see that this is what I would have done before I put something in the freezer, before I put a tomato in the freezer. I would have cut off any of these cracks or bad spots, and I would have stuck them straight in a freezer bag just like this. But these are going right in the roaster so that we can get these cooked down. And I've got a couple tomatoes from the fall garden that are still ripening or need to be picked. And I'll just make little batches of tomato sauce fresh. But I really wanted to get this bulk of the tomatoes on the shelf, shelf stable, so that we could enjoy them for a really easy meal to come. Now, here's where this starts to get a little bit less efficient than if I had an immersion blender. So we just did not have it in the budget to buy a new kitchen tool this year, and that is okay. I've got this Vitamix. It's very high powered, but I've got to blend these up in batches. And so it is a little bit messy. You can see I laid out like every bowl that I own. And I am just taking these big cupfuls and filling my Vitamix all the way up and then getting that blending. And I love this thing. It works really well. Moving forward, I would love an immersion blender so I could just do it all in the roaster. But I'm just going to get this blended up. We're using what we have. I put this on high power and I probably did each batch for about 20 to 30 seconds. And then I'm going to take that and just transfer it into the bowls until I've worked through the entire batch. And it's crazy. I had the exact amount of bowls that I needed. So praise God for that. That was amazing. I am, of course, making a huge mess on this first one. So it's definitely not my kitchen if it's not a mess when you're done. But here we go. We are just going to get these all filled up. Now, this actually was not as bad as I thought it was. Like I said, I've done this on the stovetop without the roaster before using multiple stock pots. And if I had to say that you should get one thing for this process, either an immersion blender or a roaster, I will say that the roaster is the absolute star of my kitchen, of my preservation kitchen. This thing allowed me to cook all of these tomatoes down with absolutely no mess. I use it for bone broth, for cooking lots of chickens to can up. So this is definitely what I would recommend. Now I am just getting all of this tomato sauce back in the roaster because while it is blended up and looks beautiful, this is absolutely not thick enough. It's more like a tomato juice at this point, which is definitely not what we want when we're looking for a pasta sauce or something like that. Now, another thing that I would do differently if I were doing this again, which I'm sure I will be here in a couple months, is I put this at 350 and then I put the lid on it and I cooked it like this for about 3 hours. It took a long time and I eventually put it to 400 and took the lid off. So moving forward, I will leave the lid off. I will start at 350 again, but I think with the lid off, it's going to cook down a lot quicker. So you can see we are in the evening time at this point. I've got my canners ready. So I've got my Presto stovetop and my Nesco electric canner. We have pulled out all the stops because I am tired. It is getting later in the evening and I am ready to do as many jars as possible. So I'm adding in my lemon juice and then my sauce. If you want to know the recipe I use, it is just the basic tomato sauce from that ball canning book that I just showed. And then we are just adjusting our headspace and getting these jars in the canner. Now, I will say I have canned tomato sauce once before, and it was way more overwhelming than this process. So, if you are a new canner or you're wanting to get started or you've been doing this for a while and it just still seems overwhelming, I have canned way more this year than I have in the past couple years. I've got more kids at this point, but it still seems easier because I'm just learning and getting so much down. So I really encourage you just to keep going, keep learning. It does get a lot easier. Now, I will be honest, I think a lot of the reason why I can more is because I do a lot of small batch canning in this electric canner. I think it's really great for busy moms or if you don't want to use a stovetop canner on your glass stovetop. I don't have an issue with that, but I know some people worry about that. But this thing, you just basically set it and almost forget it. Now, I do have some tomato sauce left over and I just want to be done canning for the night. So I am taking this out of the roaster, putting it in this bowl, and then I'm going to put it in the fridge until tomorrow and do another small batch in the electric canner in the morning. So I'll just heat this back up and get it in the canner. All right, so it is the next morning. I am not sure why this clip is blurry, so sorry about that, but we've got our yogurt going in the Instant Pot on the left-hand side, and now I am going to get this pasta sauce that's been in the fridge all night. We're going to get this warmed up so that it can be the same temperature as our jars that are warming in the electric canner. And I'm just putting this in a Dutch oven. We got 3 quarts from this. So the night before, we got 11 quarts and then 3 more quarts this morning in the pressure canner. I'm feeling so good about that. 14 quarts of pasta sauce for my family. I feel so blessed. And so at this point, I am just checking the seals. I'm wiping down the jars. I am so happy all of these sealed. That's like a canner's dream. Everything's sealed, everything's looking good. I will say I got so many quarts because this is a thinner pasta sauce. I add a small can of tomato paste when I cook this up. It's not a problem for me. You can see the consistency here, but that's just what I prefer. It just stretches a little bit further. And so I'm just going to get this in the canner. At this point, I'm pretty tired, and so I stopped filming a lot of it, but we did get 14 quarts of tomato sauce. I hope that this video was helpful in showing you kind of how you would do this and how you would set all this up to get your tomato sauce canned up. But I hope that this blessed you. I hope you have a great day, and I will see you later.